So thanks to the county for the freebies. Also thanks to Katie and John for stepping in on short notice. We usually are booked out 2 months, and we needed somebody for today. And Katie's our go-to person. When we call her and say, Katie, we're in a bind, she always comes through for us, so thank you. Katie is Katie Yergensen. She's been with the city since 2013. She is their county media relations manager, and she wears a number of hats. I thought one that was really interesting is that she's the public information officer if there's ever a crisis or an emergency. She maintains the social media and county websites. She disseminates news and information representing the county. She schedules and develops public presentations, meetings, and outreach. So she's a busy lady. So we appreciate your being here. And John Waschbusch has been with the county since 2005, wearing a number of different hats. His most recent is that he's the Deputy County Manager. And that means that he provides executive leadership assistance to the county manager, to the county board of commissioners. He is also in charge of strategic initiatives, project management, long-range planning, operational efficiency, and John was actually the county person assigned to developing the Rimrocker Trail. So we're hearing it from the experts, although Rich Giacchino, raise your hand, Rich, told me that he and a group of his buddies were the ones that kind of charted the thing out initially. So this is definitely a grassroots thing. Our third speaker will be Greg Larson. He's the field manager for the Uncompahgre Valley BLM, and he's over there. He has been with the BLM since 2014. So he will be talking about the Shavano Gateway Recreation Area. Is that what you're calling it? Okay, so that will be interesting as well. We haven't heard quite as much about that. So that's enough for introductions. This should be a really interesting program. I'll turn the mics over to Katie and John.
Thank you. That was quite an introduction and quite a job description, and now I'm feeling intimidated about going back into the office. I'm John Waschbusch, Deputy County Manager. I have been with the county 14 years. I started straight out of the 4th grade, and been there ever since. And I love Montrose. You know, if nothing else, I have always loved this community. Who else loves Montrose? All right, so we have this on video. A couple people didn't raise their hand. You're on my list. You made the list. I appreciate everybody coming out to learn about what the county's up to because the county works for you. We're an extension of the community. We take that very seriously, and I hope that I have the chance to speak with you afterwards and answer any other county-related questions you may have. Today, we're here to talk about the Rimrocker Trail. Hopefully you're interested in that. If so, you're in the right spot. If you're not interested in hearing about the Rimrocker Trail, the next hour is going to be somewhat challenging for you. So try and hang in there. Katie made us a great PowerPoint, which I haven't seen in total, so if what I'm saying doesn't match up with what's on the screen, just bear with me and we'll get it straightened out. Did you know that you can go from Shavano Valley, west of Montrose, to Moab without going on the pavement? Who knew that? Okay, so I guess I hadn't thought about it too much, but a few years ago, it was brought to our attention by the illustrious Rich Cicchino and others that it was possible to do that. And we thought, well, that sounds pretty cool. I think people would like to do that. And so we set about designating the Rimrocker Trail as a route and a means of formalizing that connection between Montrose and Moab. We had a lot of really good help from Western Slope four-wheelers, from Uncompahgre Valley Trail Riders, backcountry four-wheelers, and the local clubs that helped us map this thing out and actually make it possible, because it's quite an undertaking to designate a 160-mile route that crosses a state line. We've got Colorado, we've got Utah involved, we've got 3 counties, we've got 2 national forests, 2 BLM field offices. CDOT, had to get involved when we crossed a highway out in the west end. And we've got the municipalities of Moab and Nucla that are actually on the route as well. So quite a bit of coordination to make it happen, but we thought this was something that would be fairly unique. Were we able to pull it off and draw a lot of interest and really introduce some of the beautiful country between Montrose and Moab to the rest of the world. So in 2015, early 15, we started working on making this designation happen, and we were able to get it signed, get it designated, coordinated, and okayed by everybody in time to open for Memorial Day 2016. Some of you are familiar with government in here. That is like ludicrous warp speed to get something done, and we were able to pull that off, and that's something that I think speaks well to the collaboration, coordination in this area among the entities that we're working on.
I think it should be noted too, actually, I was checking back, and John and I presented in May of 2016 when the forum was down in Heidi. So the Rimrocker at that point was still kind of in developmental stages. You will be surprised to learn what we have done the past 2 years.
The route is amazing. I think even for this part of the world in western Colorado, where we're used to everything being spectacular in terms of scenery, the route stitches together some very, very beautiful country. You've got everything from high alpine, on the top of the plateau, the route tops out over 10,000 feet. And you've got your spruce fir forests, and this time of year you've got wildflowers. And you've got water, particularly this year, you've got water running everywhere. And then you're in that Red Rock Canyon country that's so iconic and known in the Moab area, but it's also in the Nucla-Natarita area in the west end. And you've got ledges and canyons and all those other things that are in between here in Moab. And this is a single route that stitches all of that together. And it also provides sort of a backbone where people can explore the area. You don't have to stay on the route. You can take a week to do it if you want. People frequently call and say, well, how long will it take to do it? It's like, how long you got? Take a couple weeks. Take your time, explore some of the side routes and other areas. It's really more of an introduction to what can be done in this part of the country. But nevertheless, it stitches together some very spectacular country, which I think is part of why it's caught on and part of why people are so excited to have this be an attraction in the area. And we're going to speak to some of the national attention it's gotten. Katie's done a good job marketing. A lot of this attention, though, has been organic. Is that the term the marketing kids use?
That's the term.
Yeah, that's the term. In that people are calling from Salt Lake, and they're calling from LA, and they're calling from these other places because they heard about the route and they want to check it out. And next thing you know, it's showing up in national publications, and Toyota is wanting to do promotional footage on the route. So that's all happened very quickly. I don't think it's a bad thing by any means. We're glad that it's gotten that attention, but I'd be lying to you if I said I thought that was going to happen as quickly as it has.
I'm just going to jump in quick. So we're talking, we build this as the adventure of a lifetime. Yesterday when I was presenting at Rotary, I had mentioned my April has never been so busy. I have received calls and emails almost every single day from individuals wanting to ride the Rimrocker. And we'll talk a little bit more when we get to publicity, but even people in Moab right now calling up saying, hey, could I ride the Rimrocker? We had people try. We had a few try, not successfully, unfortunately. They sent us some great photos. That's what we've learned about the OHV community, is that they want to share their experiences. So as a result, we've kind of set up a blog on our website to capture some of that so we can then share it with their friends. The individuals, a couple from Wisconsin, actually. I met with them, just so happened, they were in town and had emailed and I said, come down to the county offices, we'd love to help you. And they went up 90, a little bit past Dry Creek and turned around. So, E for effort. I advised them maybe they should wait, come a little bit later. We have a lot of great trails in the West End that we were able to divert them to, so that was extremely beneficial.
Thanks, Katie. And yeah, Katie mentioned users have been very eager and great about sharing their photos and their experiences. And what you see up here is some of those user-generated photos. I think the mountain bike one was somebody that did the whole route on a mountain bike. I believe we have that experience documented somewhere on the website. They took their time over several days, managed to find enough water and enough personal fortitude to make the entire journey, and shared it with us. And then we've had Jeep clubs, we've had OHV clubs. The dirt bike guys, particularly a group out of Colorado Springs, really seem to enjoy doing the whole thing. They'll do it in a day because they're moving quite a bit faster than anybody else would out there. Abiding by the speed limit, though, I'm sure the entire way. We have people planning vacations, and those are a lot of phone calls that we get. They're planning trips, they're planning vacations, be it family or be it Jeep groups and OHV groups for tours. JP Magazine was just through 2 weeks ago, and they had
120.
They had 120 Jeeps as a group came through. They stopped at the event center. They paid to open the bar at the event center, which is more revenue for the event center and the community. We appreciate that. But these are folks that are making Montrose a destination as a result of Rimrocker Trail, and so that has been really wonderful. That was one of the goals, but it is caught on, again, as I said, a lot faster than we had anticipated. And we continue to hear really positive stories. I have a logbook that I started keeping probably 2016 of people that called and ended up with me to get trip planning questions answered. And so last night, I went through there and I just counted up the area codes of actual individuals that I have spoke to on trip planning questions. 35 area codes. And those are people that ended up with me. So I'll be sitting in the office and I'm working on, budget or personnel issue or something like that, and then somebody will call and say, I heard you're the guy to talk to about Rimrocker Trail. I'm like, that sounds way better. Yeah, let's talk about that. And so I don't mind taking the time to talk to these people, but 35 area codes from all over the country, just people that have called and ended up put through to me to answer trip planning questions. I was over at the Visit Montrose Center a couple weeks ago. We went through a period last year where we sold the Rimrocker maps instead of giving them away. And Kylie told me that the #1 best-selling item at the gift shop in Montrose was the Rimrocker map. That says something too, best-selling item in the entire store. So again, speaks to the attention that the route is getting overall. There's great history associated with the route, and if you have an appreciation for the history of the area, the history of the West, this is potentially more interesting to you. But the route will take you through some areas and show you some things that are worth stopping and thinking about from a historical perspective. One of them is the hanging flume. How many people are familiar with the hanging flume? Okay, this is definitely a Montrose crowd when that many people are familiar with the hanging flume. That structure was built above the river to move water for mining operations. It was a big play. It was a lot of effort. They hung people over the edge of the cliff on ropes and drilled into the cliff walls over a period of a couple of years to build that thing. To stand there in the heat in July and picture hanging over the wall day after day to build that thing is really something in and of itself. That remnants of it are still there after 130, 140 years. Very impressive as well, but a very cool piece of history, and one that as you're winding your way through this beautiful landscape, you can be introduced to. Similarly, there's a huge uranium history in the West End. The Yergensen mineral belt in the west end of Montrose and San Miguel counties was one of the largest producers of uranium in the world for a period, particularly around the 1940s. And so you see a lot of history there too. Some of these sections of the Rimrocker Trail and the routes that you can get on off of it, those are there because they went to uranium claims originally. There was not a whole lot of other reason for some of those two tracks to be there. And so that's where those came from. And even the term Rimrocker itself is historic in origin. Our historical society on the West End is the Rimrocker Historical Society. A lot of folks have heard the stories about Butch Cassidy robbing the bank in Telluride and heading out through that country into Utah and Robbers Roost, and that's a great bit of history. There's some other local history with folks running from the law, hiding out in the Rimrock country, and they were referred to as Rimrockers. And variously, I think that term's been used to refer to people that were just either living in that country or hiding out or whatever, but I think now we've repurposed it, and Rimrockers is referring to people that are willing to ride a mountain bike all the way from Montrose to Moab, or they're out there on the dirt bike. So even the name Rimrocker has a historical context that is, at least for a nerd like me, very interesting. And since you all knew about the hanging flume, I'm going to assume that that sort of thing is interesting to you as well. But the route is a great introduction to some of that stuff as well. What do we got? Yeah, route highlights. 6,500 feet in elevation variance. So just elevation difference in the trail. Up over 10,000 feet on the plateau. You're 4,000 feet-ish in the Moab area. You are going through a lot of environments in a single day. You know, wear layers. The La Salle Mountains, the Uncompahgre Plateau, the Paradox Valley, which if you've ever gotten up on top and looked out over that valley, that is a spectacular valley. Buckeye Reservoir and Campground on the state line, also gorgeous. And then, yeah, Moab has some scenery in and of itself when you get over into that part of the world. So the things that you're able to see along the route, I've covered some of that already, are pretty spectacular. And to have all that, whether you do it in 1 day, 2 days a week, is somewhat of a unique experience. To be able to do it all legally on an OHV, which we'll talk about making that a reality in a minute, again, adds a little bit more to how unique this asset is as a recreational opportunity. Okay. I can walk you through the route briefly, and I will try and make it brief. Starting from Montrose, because we all know Montrose is the center of the universe. Well, wouldn't you start here? You're out of Shavano Valley, that is your beginning point. The Montrose to Nucla portion is essentially the express lane, the quicker portion of the route. 90 road divide, these are well-maintained gravel roads. You're going to be able to maintain a little bit higher speed through here, but it is still beautiful. And one thing that we find noteworthy for us, it's like, yeah, you're driving up over the plateau. If you work for the county, you actually take this route in the summer to go to meetings or go to work in Nucla, which is not a bad commute. You could definitely do worse sitting on the interstate someplace.
If I can add a note about that, so oftentimes when I'm talking to people about the Rimrocker, if they call in, I will tell them, they're asking like, do I need 35-inch tires? Do I need to air up? Do I need to air down? And I'll say, hey, I take a county pickup over to Nucla, usually in the summer. And they were like, you get to ride the Rimrocker for work? Yeah, it's part of my job. It's an easy route. It's actually faster. It's faster and it's a better route. And as John mentioned, it's more scenic. It's more pleasant. Adds a little bit of variance to our day. So, Nuclear to State Line, do you have any particular comments you want to mention here?
Just, I was going to make one more on Montrose. People that are coming out and renting Jeeps, and that's a growing thing, or they're coming out and they want to do the route. For us, it may be the morning commute, that Montrose to Nuclear section. But if you're not used to driving around in the mountains and you came out from Illinois or Ohio or someplace where, you know, the elevation variance for the state is 800 feet, you're feeling pretty good going over the plateau. You're like, check me out, I'm Jeeping. And we want those people to have a good time. And it's easier to rescue them if they get in trouble on the plateau than it is in some of the farther western reaches. So I think even the plateau portion serves a really good tourism purpose in that some folks want to be out and about, but maybe the gravel road is about the extent of what they should be involved in, at least initially. And so that's a good option for them. Nuclear to the state line, this is where you're getting into the desert. Now you could actually exercise your right to get lost, sunburnt, snake bit, you know, run over, whatever else, eaten by a bear. If anybody's ever read Desert Solitaire by Ed Abbey, he's got a really great quote that I like about everybody has a right to get lost, sunburnt, eaten by a bear, etc. And that's a right I try and exercise every summer, for sure. This part, you're out in the desert, there's some ledgy roads, it starts to get exposed in places. There's some creek crossings that get impassable during high water. We've got one that is going to be impassable this year until, I'd say, late June, mid to late June. We tell people, make good choices, because there's nobody to stop you from going and trying to go through the creek. The creek will stop you. So this is where people have to take on some personal responsibility. We haven't had any major mishaps yet, but
That we know of.
It starts to get more exciting, and I think people prefer to have some options like that. From the Dolores River up to the state line is gorgeous. We'll have some photos of that, I think, shortly. You're overlooking Paradox Valley. It's a single lane road, and then that Buckeye campground is a hidden gem because you get up there, it's in the Ponderosa's big open meadow, and there tends to not be anybody there. So a very beautiful section of the route, and you start to get fairly remote. And then finally from state line into Moab, this is where it's rocky. As you go around the southern end of the LaSalle's, there are just rocks, you know, on portions of the road, and it is nothing but rocks, anywhere from the size of a baseball to, I don't know, what's a bigger thing? A toaster?
SUV.
Yeah, toaster or an SUV. Rocks of varying sizes, I guess, is what we're saying there. I drove Commissioner Hanson as part of her initiation to being a county commissioner. We went through there last year. Everybody was pretty beat up and dusty by the time we got to Moab. But she got to see the whole route along with Commissioner Caddy, and they still talk to me afterwards. So it was, I think ultimately it was a good team building experience to have done it. But this is a little more rocky, and it can be deceiving because you're looking out at Moab at times because you're up high and you can see, oh, I'm almost there, but you're going slow because of the rocks. So you might be able to, in your mind, taste that cold beer or whatever beverage you're thinking of. But it ends up taking 3 or 4 hours from the time you're really seeing into the valley to the time you're actually down in the valley and able to dust yourself off.
So another thing I want to mention in regard to all of the maps, up here is we just have just the route. The maps that a lot of you do have, they also show other outlets, other avenues. So there's some cutoffs that we've added, other ways and options for you to explore, because the best thing about the Rimrocker is it's not a one-way trip. You're not just stuck on the Rimrocker the entire time. You can cut off to avoid high water. You can take and explore other trails. You can look out into the area, and we've got a variety of different trails, from Jeep trails to side-by-side trails, ATV trails, 50-inch trails, And that's actually one thing that we are working on developing. So, inside secret, the county GIS department has been working on expanding those trails within our interactive map viewer that's on our website. So we've talked about the destination, trying to work to improve Montrose as a destination, and our hope is that in doing that, we can further that goal. So a lot of the individuals that I've spoken with lately, I'll say, hey, you know, we have the Rimrocker, but we also have all of these other trails, and they've been blown away. People really, truly didn't understand the depth of exploration that is offered here, coupled with the history, some amazing views. It really is it's a pretty large asset to our area that we are trying to showcase and trying to market.
There is an economic development goal with the Rimrocker, obviously, and I've touched on that a little bit. Moab, international destination, and truly international destination. If anybody's been over there in April or the shoulder seasons the past few years, to say that it's discovered is an understatement. Everybody's there. When we can begin to link Montrose and Moab, Moab and Montrose, that is only going to benefit for tourism purposes, Montrose to be associated with that brand and that name for such an international destination. This is a physical link. It's also a link in terms of knowledge and understanding of the area. And we continue to get calls from people that say they are going to Moab, that's their reason for being in the area, but they heard about the Rimrocker and they want to do that. That provides an opportunity for Montrose, and especially the west end of Montrose County, to pick up some of that overflow from the Moab market. And when I was over talking to Moab Travel Council and Moab Chamber as we were permitting the route, a lot of those folks during their peak times are willing to spill over. They're willing to share because they are overwhelmed at times. So to have people using Moab as a base camp but heading over into Colorado for 2 or 3 days did not seem to ruffle any feathers, at least for peak season. And there are some advantages, I think maybe even to the Moab area, because we have Montrose Regional Airport. 12 direct flights, 12 flights to major American cities direct from Montrose. That airport handled 266,533 passengers last year. I think that was the right number, give or take. That's a lot of traffic for an airport of a community this size. Moab does not have a similar sized airport. And so it could be that people want to begin planning trips where they start in Montrose or they come in and out of Montrose. A lot of those folks that are going to Moab are into national parks. Do we have a national park in Montrose? We do. And so they can begin to incorporate Montrose into their trip planning, and they really have, based on the calls that we get anyhow. It's taken off rather quickly. So to build that sort of, I'm trying desperately to avoid the word synergy because I make fun of people for saying it. To build that sort of co-branded type thing is really working out well for us, and I think works well for Moab and hopefully for Montrose as well. The same geology and scenery that makes Moab what it is extends right across the state line for 20, 30 miles into the west end of Montrose County. And as those communities try and diversify their economies to add outdoor rec, not as a replacement to coal, because I'm always very careful to say that those jobs don't pay what the mining jobs did. However, it provides something in terms of economic diversification. That's been a good thing as well. And when folks discover that you can go and have the same sorts of adventures in the west end of Montrose County, minus the crowds, that's very attractive to a lot of people, and I think we'll continue to see that grow.
Okay, this is my favorite part. You can probably guess why. So we're going to talk about the publicity that the Rimrocker Trail has received the past 2 years, and actually most of this has been in the past year. So way back when we started noticing the Rimrocker taking off, we decided, hey, we need a presence. We need to direct people where to go. We need to provide them information. And Erica Story in the back, and give her a shout out. She's our digital communications project manager. She designed the website in-house. So it was a significant savings to the county, but we've been able to expand our website quite a bit. As I mentioned earlier, we added the blog. We also have a presence on Facebook right now, and that seems to be where we're connecting with a lot of our riders and where they're finding us and sharing us with their friends. A lot of the photos that you've seen throughout the presentation, as I mentioned earlier, people are sending us. They want to talk to us about their experience. They want a free sticker. They're on the table. So usually that's what we'll do. We'll send a thank you note with a sticker. People like to display that onto their vehicles to show that they've done the Rimrocker. It's a significant adventure. It's 160 miles. That is something to be proud of. So Men's Journal. This is actually a neat story. Men's Journal is a freelance writer out of Telluride, and he happened to be upon the Tabwatch Trading Company in the West End. They are actually one of our partners. They sell some of our Rimrocker gear that you'll see up here. And the freelance writer walked in, probably to get a beverage, hanging out, checking out the area. Nucla, small town, right? Okay. And she said, hey, how about the Rimrocker? The trail he was initially planning on had some inclement weather. And I was like, what's the Rimrocker? Tell me about the Rimrocker. Lo and behold, we get a page article, at least with some cool photos, in Men's Journal. It's a nationally renowned publication. I cannot pay enough for that. I'll be honest, it's not in the county budget. We'd be spending $15,000, $30,000 on a singular ad. We don't have that. So we're getting creative with the resources that we do have, and that was one of our, I'd like to call that one of our wins. John had mentioned Toyota. So Overland Journal. Overlanding it's a thing. It is a thing. So it's a newer idea. Well, maybe not. It's just a new name for an old idea. Overlanding is taking your OHV, your Jeep, your Toyota, whatever it may be, and going on long excursions, long treks. I don't know if there's a particular mile limit to it, and taking your camping gear and going out and just having a good time and being self-sufficient. So Overland Journal happened to be at the FJ Summit, and I think they initially reached out to John, and we kind of trade back and forth with contacts and expertise, and it said, hey, we have a group of about 30 reporters that we are taking with a bunch of really cool, brand new, souped-up Toyotas. Can you help us? Yes, we can. So you've seen on your table today, it's one of our secret strategies. We're big into swag. So we like our swag game. Those reporters all received bags with maps. We have detailed directions of the trail, some of the things you have, and a few other items. Ultimately, end of the day, maybe $400, $600 in swag was invested into those reporters. The returns that we got from that, you can't beat that. Overlanding Journal ended up putting up an article onto their page, and then they also did I think it's a little, maybe almost an hour-long video, talking about the Rimrocker, talking about the performance of these Toyotas, and it was not just them, other outlets too that we've seen. If you go to YouTube and search Rimrocker Trail, you will be surprised to learn of all the people that like to document their journeys. So we have watched some of those, been surprised, laughed quite a bit, and just enjoyed some of the scenery. JP Magazine, Sean talked about a little bit. So JP Magazine actually happened about a year and a half ago maybe. We found an alert on social media that Rick Payway, who is the publisher of JP Magazine, was in Nucla. Again, Nucla. Some of these young men had found him, they were big fans, and it ended up coming up on our feed and we were alerted to it. So I'm like, well, let's try something. We reached out to JP Magazine and said, hey, we want to talk about the Rimrocker Trail. Do you know about this? We'd love to find out more. We want to talk with you, develop a relationship. Well, they happen to be big aviation buffs, and it was around the time that Tribute to Aviation was happening, and they were coming up to Montrose. So we brought them in. Of course, we brought them over to Tribute, and worked on developing that relationship. They've written a few articles, they've had a few online publications about the Rimrocker, but the event that John was referring to a couple weeks ago was called the JP Dirt and Drive. It is an exclusive event. You have to apply through them, and it is a pre-Easter Jeep Safari event. It's a 600-mile trek, and this year they started out in Farmington, and they tried so hard. They really wanted to include the Rimrocker. Now, if this was last year, no problem. We had people riding the Rimrocker in December of last year. Obviously, things are a little bit different this year, right? We talked about that. So they were unable to do that, but they worked with one of our local Jeep clubs. 120 Jeeps, people with a lot of disposable income, came up, set up at the fairgrounds, and they went out onto all of our different trails. And then that evening, the Office of Business and Tourism and the county partnered, and we hosted a pizza party for them. So yours truly, Commissioner Hansen, were serving up pizza, hanging out and talking to these people from Canada, from Michigan, from Kansas, from Washington, all over the United States that had taken off the time from work, invested the income or the dollars into this. There's a registration fee, and then, you know, spending hotels. So they spent a night here in Montrose. It's 120 Jeeps. You can do the math. And they enjoyed it. They had so much fun. We had so many positive comments. It was an incredibly grateful group, and they will be back. So that was another big win that we've had recently. The other thing actually I do want to mention, we talked about economic development a little bit. Within JP Magazine, Natarita was a dedicated fuel up spot. So you had to fuel up in Natarita. 120 Jeeps fueling up in Natarita, I would say, is more than your average Sunday traffic. It's great. And so we were able to work with the chamber or the visitor center down there. They remained open. I contacted fuel stations in advance just saying, you may receive a little bit more traffic than normal. Be prepared. So that was a really good partnership. Easter Jeep Safari. We have had a presence at Easter Jeep Safari. It is the premier Jeep event, and of course, it's in Moab. We have a really great relationship with the Red Rock Four-Wheeler Club that hosts Easter Jeep Safari. We have a very, very dedicated group of volunteers that we are incredibly grateful to for all of their support. They will go out. They went out with Commissioner Rash this year and spent time promoting the Rimrocker Trail. There's usually 10 to 15,000 people that go through there, and we send them, of course, we send them swag. But it's an extremely positive event, and it has served actually as one of our kind of platforms to reach out to additional people, and then those relationships happen. Another event, and I can tell you that I've been working on, is with a dirt bike group out of Denver. They want to host a timed trial. They've been working with the BLM on some permitting and all the other agencies. Now this one is within the speed limits. They're actually, so time trial, not necessarily on your speed. They are using posted speed limits and then observing, you know, a general, it should take you about this long to complete this. It's a little bit more about strategy. So these are just a few of the things that we have done or we've been a part of, or it happened. People love the Rimrocker Trail. I had a call recently from Motor Trend magazine, Motor Trend TV. They had 2 new vehicles that they wanted to try out, and they said, we want to do the Rimrocker. Well, that was April too. Kind of a rough month for the Rimrocker in April. I told them, you know, I'm really sorry, we want to make this happen. Do we have another route? So they ended up running the Waschbusch Trail through BLM. And I asked him, I said, how'd you hear about the Rimrocker Trail? I'm curious. You're a TV producer, relatively. You work at Motor Trend. It's a big deal. He said, my off-road guys. I asked my off-road guys, we're going near Moab, we're doing some other filming. Where should we go? And they said, you need to do the Rimrocker. That is the place to go, and you will get the best footage you need there. So people are taking notice, and we are doing our best to encourage that. I know we're tight on time, so I'm going to kind of move this through a little bit. You want to talk missing link?
Sure thing, and we'll go into hypergraph. Could you go back one slide just for a second, please? I think the thing that... We were surprised to get the coverage from Men's Journal. I think the thing that surprised me most of all was seeing my face on the cover. That was totally unexpected, and still surprised that that happened. They got just the right angle that day. Missing link is the missing link for OHV connection between Montrose and Moab. The route's 160 miles, 158.6 miles are OHV legal. The 1.4 that's not is Highway 141 next to the Dolores River Canyon. You cannot in Colorado legally ride an OHV on the state highway. So you got to build a frontage trail, essentially, is what we worked out with CDOT. We, over a period of over a year, were able to get permitting and do what we needed to do with adjoining landowners, got permission to build the frontage trail, got engineered designs, did the whole thing, and then needed funding to build it, and so we went to Colorado Parks and Wildlife's OHV fund with a grant application. Now, in government, you don't get to be competitive that often, or it seems like, so for those of us that have a bit of a competitive nature, we love grants. Because we got to go and present this project, which we called the Missing Link. It was one of 43 applications, and Montrose got the highest score in the state. It's not that it's a contest, but we totally won. And we were awarded $194,000 from that fund to complete the project. We're going to build it in September of this year, is how that worked out permitting and funding-wise. So once the Missing Link is constructed, you will legally be able to ride an OHV all the way from Shavano Valley into Moab. And so we're pleased to be able to make that final connection. We're pleased to have the state's support, especially to the tune of $194,000. And again, having the top score in the state, I think, speaks to the interest that everybody has in this project that makes it that competitive on a statewide scale, because there's a lot of folks with a lot of good projects, and this one ended up coming out on top. Shavano Gateway Recreation Area. We have our friend, Field Office Manager Greg Larson from Uncompahgre BLM here today. I will sum this one up rather shortly. We wanted an appropriate trailhead for the west end of the trail. A lot of you are familiar with the big muddy spot parking area at the bottom of Shavano now. It's been a parking area for years. People park there. People do all sorts of things there. The thought was that we could improve that and have it be an actual formal trailhead. So as this thing is gaining attention and usage, we approached BLM and said, hey, we're looking at maybe putting an improved parking area here. What would that take? BLM responded by saying, you know, Uncompahgre, the mountain bike association, already has plans for new single-track trails there, and separately, the OHV and four-wheel drive clubs had a proposal for a training and obstacle course, all right there in about the same spot. So BLM, I think, partly out of self-preservation and partly because it was a good idea, said, would the county be willing to try and take this on and coordinate all three of these things into a single project? Fortunately, we were able to do that. Those relationships already existed. So the county, Uncompahgre, and the motorized community got together, did some drawings, consolidated the projects. And when I say did drawings, I mean we had maps and markers. We're able to get a grant from Colorado Department of Local Affairs to formalize the design. We hired Dowell Consultants out of Montrose to actually do engineered drawings and designs, including grading plans, drainage, etc. for the project. And we're then able to submit to BLM as a Recreation Public Purposes Act application. That project and process allows BLM to consider giving the property to the county through a lease initially, and then ultimately through a patent whereby the county would own the property. So we have some drawings, I think, that are included in the presentation here, and now we are kind of kicking off the beginning of the scoping for that project. And I think I'll let Greg talk about RNPP and the project and where we're at from there.
Super. That is a hard act to follow. These guys are real pros, and it's really been exciting to be involved in this project. Montrose County and John have been really visionary, I think, in meeting a lot of the goals that BLM has in common with them. So it's been exciting not just to have them help us by packaging projects from the community. BLM has a real strategy nationally right now called Connecting with Communities for our recreation program. And part of that strategy is not just being responsive to single user groups, but really being responsive to the community at large. So economic development, quality of life, all these things that are important to a place like Montrose. And it's really cool to be here this morning and see all these people here. So we had a public meeting on this very project 2 weeks ago. I think we've got more people here right now than we did at that meeting, and I thought we had great turnout at that meeting. So I'm really pleased to be invited here this morning and have the opportunity to meet some folks here that I haven't met in the community yet. So thank you guys for having me here this morning as well. So BLM is a partner in this in a couple of different ways. Part of that is we issue special recreation permits for folks that want to be out on public land. And one thing John didn't mention, I don't think, in your presentation, is that the Rimrocker Trail is all on county road, right? So the BLM doesn't touch the Rimrocker Trail, which makes it very easy for folks to have these organized events and get out there without having to go through, frankly, I hate to use the word red tape, but BLM, we're an organization of the government. We've got rules we've got to follow. So part of what we're working on with this proposal with John for the Recreation and Public Purposes Act staging area is a way for Montrose County to be able to say yes to events, Easter, Jeep Safari, Men's Journal, whatever it is, without having BLM needing to get involved. So we're working on a couple of things out there. Can we go back one slide? So we're engaged right now in the BLM in reviewing a proposal from Montrose County that involves 3 separate things. So the first is a staging area for the Rimrocker Trail, and we would actually transfer that parcel to the county under the Recreation and Public Purposes Act, which allows us to actually convey public land to a county for something like a landfill or a recreation site. In this case, it would be a recreation site. And it would be a place that folks could come and stage for their 2 to 4 to 6 day journey over to Moab and back, park their rigs, and sort of enjoy a nice facility that, frankly, BLM probably doesn't have the money to afford constructing right now, but it's a service we'd really like to help the county provide. So that's one part of that proposal. We're really excited, like I said, it'll allow the county to issue, or not even issue, just say, sure, you want to have an event? Come on out, have fun, right? I think that's the intent. Yep. The other part of that is when we talked with the mountain biking groups and we talked with the 4-wheel groups, there's some other needs out there. So there's the safety training course. How do you use your vehicle? How do you get familiar with it? How do you, go out for a trip like this safely? So that would be part of it. Another part is about 20 miles of single track trails that we are entertaining right now for Moab and the public. So those would be for hiking, mountain biking, horseback riding, any sort of non-motorized use. And the last part is when we talked with Moab and we talked with partners, we heard the need for high school mountain bike teams, cross-country teams, local organizations to have a place to go out and have events on trails without a whole lot of red tape again. And so we're going to look at issuing programmatic special recreation permits where we've sort of defined the box. If you've got less than 200 people, if you've got staging areas that are in appropriate places, if you're not doing it overnight, we'll write you a permit. We don't need to go through another environmental review. We don't need to go out and take it to the public again. We're going to just go ahead and write you the permit. So we're really excited about that. So that's a proposal that we're looking at right now. We are out to a process called scoping, where we ask the community, what do we need to know about before we make this decision? And that scoping period actually closes today. So I've got some information in the back on how to comment on that. I'm happy to stick around after this and answer questions, talk more about the proposal. But we've got a lot of information online, and I think it's a really exciting proposal for the community. So, what else do I need to hit? I didn't have a whole lot of time to prepare either, so I'm sort of winging it here this morning. Super. Yeah.
So, as Greg mentioned, we do actually have the press release in the back. We have comment forms, so Erica has those. We would highly encourage you to fill them out however you see fit in support of the Rimrocker project. I can say that. I'll say that. Okay. Let's see. Almost done. I know we may have some questions. I hope you do. So, following latest Rimrocker news, I've talked about it. Facebook, check out our website, check out our blog. And, well, you know who we are. If you have any questions for us, we would love to hear them.
So for those of you who haven't been here, just raise your hand. If you have a question, we'll get the mic to you and they'll respond.
It sounds like there's a lot of work been done on this. You're talking about access and so forth. Is there any plans to use the Rimrocker parts of it in the winter time? Because there's some fantastic snowmobiling up there and Nordic skiing, which would need additional staging areas further on up.
Rich Chiquino. Rich, do you guys groom on Divide and 25? What are you grooming on the plateau?
Yes.
Yes. The answer is yes. So,
I do have staging areas, and they're listed on the CSA website.
okay, so Jim, I'm going to direct you to Rich, but the grooming is taking place, and there are staging areas already apparently in support of winter activities up there. So, good question, and I think Rich, I know he's had a big part of the grooming activities around here over the years. Good resource for you to get a good follow-up on that question.
John, one of the things I was concerned about was the activity for Road Bridge to pave some of the 90 and Davewood Road going on up closer up to the snow level.
I don't believe we have any plans to pave 90 or Davewood Road. I'm looking at our Public Works Director, Keith. Shake your head one way or another. I'm not aware of plans for additional pavement.
We're going to pave Davewood to the county line this summer.
There you go. So apparently we are going to pave Davewood. Again, how many miles, Keith?
About 2 miles.
2 miles to get to the Uray County line. Again, I'm not sure how that's going to impact. I'm afraid I'm not getting your question entirely, Jim.
That's good.
Okay. And I learned something today too.
It's nice to see all the enthusiasm for this, but what about the downsides? And especially dealing with impact on wildlife and change of the character of the land?
There's an increase in use. There's an increase in use as a result of the trail. As Greg noted, these routes were already there, so the corridor of disturbance is not any different than it has been, although you're going to see additional usage. For sensitive times of the year, there will be winter closures. In fact, one of the proposals for Shavano Gateway is that there will be a seasonal closure annually for wintering big game from, is it December 1? December 1 till April 30. Currently, that area is not closed for protection of wintering big game. And so in that regard, there's actually a bit of a pickup for wildlife. Also, the high portions of the route not open in the winter. Snow is going to keep those closed. So I think if there is disturbance, Wayne, it's going to be in the form of additional traffic, but it's in that same corridor that's been in use for years.
Other questions?
This isn't a question, but it's a comment. The magazine people and other groups that you told them they couldn't do it in April, they're gonna probably be like kids. If you tell them no, they're gonna probably really want to come down.
I'm just gonna follow up on that. Maybe because my children would probably do that. However, one of the first things that Motor Trend asked me is, let's talk about permitting. For these other trails, I was trying to send them up a different trail that is on a county road, and they said, you have permitting within the county, right? And I said, yes, we do. I'd be happy to talk about permitting with you. It's an agreement with our attorney. It's super easy. So we're working on that.
Katie, could you or John speak to signage along the trail? I've been lost on the divide, and I live here. So what about people from elsewhere?
So the entirety of the route is signed with Carsonite posts with the Rimrocker logo. They're about every 3 miles. Katie's going to show you a picture of one here in a second. Particularly as you get into Utah, there's a lot of intersections. We encourage people to use GPS over there. We actually have the downloadable GPS files that you can put into your device, that if you get to an intersection and you're wondering, do I go left, right, or turn around here, you'll have that data. These posts, this exact post, is on the entirety of the route. We've done our best to sign intersections. I now have more empathy for my friends at Public Lands, because as soon as we put them up, some people shot them and ran them over. Apparently that's a thing to do as well. So recreation of all sorts. But to answer your question, Zilliman, these posts are on the entirety of the route all the way into Moab, or at least they were as of a year ago.
Other questions?
Thank you for sharing. I'm just curious if you've said and I missed it, but how long would you plan a trip to take the entire trail? And is it different from Moab to Montrose versus Montrose to Moab?
So it depends on what you're driving, what your goals are, how good a condition your lumbar region is in. We did it in a pickup truck in a day, short bed pickup, and I think with reasonable stops for snacks and lunch and everything, we left Montrose about, I think 7 in the morning, and I think we were in Moab at about 6:30 in the evening. The dirt bikers are doing it way faster than that. I only know a few guys that have done it on OHVs. I think they're doing it probably faster than the Jeeps. So you can do it in a day, a long, dusty day, but it can be done in a day.
Any others?
You guys are doing a great job in publicizing this. I don't know if you're maintaining traffic counts yet, but I can envision it turning into I-25 in Denver when you have groups of 200 Jeeps. I've not been up there. I would not want to be in a traffic jam on that kind of a trail. It seems like it would take away from the ambiance.
And I definitely understand that. So that 120 Jeeps, they did not ride all of the Rimrocker. But I think it's fair to be noted, and again, on our map, we have so many different offshoots. The county is comprised of roughly over 70% of public lands, and we've been trying to encourage people to check out some of these alternate routes. If you're gonna go camp, take a day. I mean, don't rush it. It's supposed to be an adventure. You want to experience it. There are some phenomenal campgrounds, as John had mentioned earlier. So take your time, and we haven't reached that point yet, but if, maybe when that happens, perhaps we'll have to look at alternate mechanisms for permitting.
I have a question. If the goal is in part to help out the West End, do they have facilities to handle groups like this? Like restaurants and fuel stops and potties and that kind of stuff?
Yes, so for the 120 Jeeps, there are technically 3 fueling stations in Natarita. One of them is just card only, one of them is actually a service station attached, and the other one you have to pay inside before you pump your gas. So varying degrees of that they do. As I had mentioned, the visitor center stayed open, so they have additional restrooms. There are a few restaurants as well. There's, Family Dollar down there, there's a grocery store, so there are options. And the other option is Nucla too. Nucla has fuel, it's on the trail route. They have, I mentioned the trading company, they do have a couple restaurants. And ultimately too, the goal is that some of this increased traffic will bring about additional businesses.
One last call. Okay, thank you for doing that. Kudos to you for such a professional presentation on such short notice.